brought into the 21st century. And then if we start to do that, we can then shorten the time period, because in the event that that person is truly innocent as determined by a panel of his peers in a jury, then they ought not to be spending long anyhow with respect to the entire process. But Mr. Speaker, like with all other things in life, it is about balance. And I, sir, therefore today, sir, rise simply to say to the Barbadian public that what lies before us is a determination that we need to be able to manage our families, our communities, and our country in such a way that people understand that violence under any rubric, but particular gun violence, is something that should be banished from these shores if all right-thinking Barbadians can work together to do so. You know, sir, 20, 30 years ago, two fellas get in a fight. They go for a 2x3 and hit one another, or they cuff down one another.
Big rock.
Big rock. They might even try to stab one another. And the chances of recovery are far greater than with a semi-automatic gun. It is the 15 seconds. I want the public to think about this, sir, and to begin to understand where our duty lies in our families, in our schools, in our communities, in our workplace, in our shops, in our places of entertainment. It is the 15 seconds that comes from the notion that I have been disrespected, or that I am offended, or that I have been lashed, or I have been hit at. It is that response in the first 15 seconds that determines where next a person goes. And part of the difficulty that we have is that there are too many stories of people being egged on by their peers, not fully appreciating the consequences of their actions until it is too late. And you know, sir, as I know, that more often than not, those behind the bars are crying after the act. They're not celebrating. And how much ever the notion that they may appear, as the AG says, to be more attractive to other people, it don't go so. The only people I know who celebrate the deprivation of liberty or hardship are people who are sociopaths. All the fancy talk, the majority of people that I know with whom I've interacted as a criminal lawyer were not in any way happy or celebrating the fact of their deprivation of liberty. And worse still, if they were sentenced to hang by a judge. These are the harsh realities. I spoke to a young man about 2 years ago, and he said to me, he himself he wasn't that young anymore. He was probably in his mid to late 30s. And he said to me, you could imagine that these youngsters come and tell me, man, I shoot that man and he playing like if he dead. A 16-year-old boy told him that. And the story stuck with me, because he said, he went on to say, my man, if you use a gun and you shoot him, he ain't playing like if he dead. He probably is. This is not cartoons. This is not a video game. And too often within our communities, there are too many stories of young people regretting their actions because a gun does not leave a margin of error. There is no buffer for error with a gun. There might be with a violent temper and a 2x3. There might be with a violent temper and a fist. There might be with a violent temper and a big rock. But Mr. Speaker, more often than not, there will not be with guns and a violent temper. Many years ago, I spoke in this country as Minister of Education to the importance of the use of language to be able to resolve conflict. And anybody who watched the series that they have going around called Badness? One of the same ones that the youngster who was killed in St. George acted in. And I don't get easily distracted because I think that the expression of the art is trying to reflect what they see and what they hear. And our duty is to make that reality of what they see and what they hear different. But one of the things that struck me was the limited use of language. The former member for the city of Bridgetown used to say all the time that the average person does not have a vocabulary or does not use a vocabulary beyond 50 or 60 words. And the first time she said it, you would shake. But the truth is that the average person really uses a very limited vocabulary. And it has been my experience, both as a person in the practice of criminal law, as well as a former Minister of Education and Youth Affairs and Culture, that more often than not, and as a Member of Parliament now in both houses for 28 years, 29 years, that people very often do not know how to express how they feel. And it is the absence of the capacity to express oneself that more often than not leads to the physical reaction, lashing out, a venting of emotions. And when we therefore say, sir, that we want the AG talked about people using language properly, and some people feel that you shouldn't. There's nobody who will speak more dialect than me when I have to. But there's also nobody like me who will also recognize that there is a time and a place for everything. And that is what we were taught as children. That is what was reinforced in us. And there's a reason for it. If our children are not equipped with the power of language, if our children are not equipped with the power of words, if our children do not have the social and emotional learning targets nurtured in them, to know and how to express caring and empathy, to know how to express anger, but still to be able to articulate it and to diffuse it, what then happens, sir, is the regrettable lashing out. If our children are not taught that there's choice and consequences, that the real test to adulthood and for adulthood is accepting that with every choice there is a consequence. And too often, sir, we are lamenting that this young person or this person wants to be given another chance because they didn't realize what they were doing.
We can give them.
Sir, I want to believe that the government which we lead will be balanced. We are going to give our people every possibility of development. We are going to do all that is within our powers to equip them with language and with capacity to manage emotions and to accept choice and consequences. The power of knowing the joy of what it is to belong to something meaningful, whether it is scouts or cadets or cricket club or football club or whatever it is, but something meaningful and purposeful that lets you understand that you're not walking this journey of life alone, that there are others who are there with you and who love you unconditionally, but that equally that we expect that to whom much is given, much is expected. And we do not expect our children, because a person at 16 and 17 and 18 and with all due respect at 20 and 21 are the children and young people of this nation. And we do not expect that a handful of them can come to define their generation or a handful of them can come to scar their generation or to blot the prospects, liberty, and safety of an entire nation. Sir, in families often, you might have 4 or 5 children, and one falls from grace and stands outside. I am not going to color the sheep because I believe that the coloring of the sheep is part of the decimation of the race to which I belong. But suffice it to say that the very story of Adam and Eve, the very understanding of humanity, if we don't want to go to the Bible, is that people will fall from grace and people will sin. But we have to find a way of allowing, and perhaps the leader of the opposition is better positioned in this debate to speak on these issues in this way and with this tone. No, you. Than I am. But I feel that at 53 years old, and with the journey that I have taken, that I have a responsibility to speak with the people of this country in this way. Because no government can win this battle. No police force can win this battle. No set of judges alone can win this battle. The combined elements of the last 3 groups I just mentioned can't win it either. But who can win it is the nation and the people. Who can win it is the mother who refuses to accept that a young child can do something bad, can take up something that don't belong to them, and that can be encouraged in doing it. Or a young child should lie, or a big adult should lie, and it be just, you turn a blind eye to it. Because if I can't trust you in the small things, I can't trust you in the large things. And that if anger rises up in you because somebody unfairs you, take the lesson from me if you don't want to take the lesson from anybody else. I have used the phrase more often, leave the ball outside the off stump. For a decade, people ask me, why you never respond when people cursing you? I say, because it takes 2 people to fight. It takes 2 people to fight. If you leave the other person, they will look eventually like a raving lunatic. All they're doing is cussing and waving their hands. It takes 2 people to fight. And leave the ball outside the off stump. And there's so many proverbs and there's so many stories within Sunday school and within our folklore that reinforce these very precepts. And you ask yourself, how have we all of a sudden not passed these on? Our children having children. And are those children not the recipient of these values and these morals that are so critical? How does it seem possible for a person in broad daylight to be brazen enough to pull a gun and to shoot somebody in the presence of others in a public space, but in the public space of the court hides his face with his hands as if the country has not already seen him? Mr. Speaker, sir, yes, our sensibilities have been offended. And yes, it is time for Operation Give Back to take back. Barbadians have to give back at every level of this society. In their families, in their church. In fact, they have to start going back to church again and sending their children to church. In their communities. And it's less about Jesus and more about understanding that there is a framework within which people have to understand what is their relationship with spirituality. In the schools, in the football and cricket clubs, in the Scouts, in the Girl Guides, the Brownies, Key Club, in the workplace, in the political parties. All of these institutions which we have to go beyond our duty as we would normally see it and ask ourselves, what is it that I can do today to make a difference in somebody's life? What is it that I can do today to allow somebody to sleep a little easier tonight? And I say these things, Mr. Speaker, because while we fight the battle to stabilize immediately, as we will and as we must, as pointed out by the Honorable Attorney General, we must not create the pathway for others to come and join those who are already on the brink with respect to breaches of the law in this country. We will save those coming up and those who want to be saved and given a chance. The economy is not the best, but it is good enough for all of us to find something for everybody. And that's why I told the head of the International Monetary Fund last year that if we're going on a long journey, you must give people a little breakfast. Is it an economy that can fulfill our wants? No, not yet. Is it an economy that can fulfill our needs? Yes, it can. And it shall. But let us understand, Mr. Speaker, that as we do that, the country cannot abide by or tolerate those who want to upset the order of stability, not of their bloc, not of their grouping, but of the country of Barbados. And our solemn duty, for however long it lasts, is to protect that public space for the people of Barbados. Sir, I end on this point and recall simply that the police, the government, the courts, as much as you want to say, they all have their duty to play. But the real defenders of the state of this country, the real people who can make that defining difference to put behind us the last 3 months in the same way that we put behind us 1991 to 94 are the people of this country. And I want, for those who say it is not possible, to remind you, I came to public life as a senator in 1991. I practiced criminal law in those years. And this country had a spike of crimes, you will recall, even though you were not yet practicing, Mr. Speaker, that probably was even worse than what we are experiencing now for their pervasive nature in terms of the geographical spread and the nature of the crimes, including invading into people's houses in particular. Mr. Speaker, sir, the history of this country will record that as a nation, we were able to wrestle down by 2007 the number of burglaries to be in 1/4 of what it was in 1991 to 94, and the number of robberies to be in 1/3 of what it was in 1991 to 94. That we have known success, therefore, in reversing criminal spikes is absolutely clear. The Honorable Attorney General referred to the first gun amnesty in 1983 because there was a serious spike then, and we dealt with it. I pray, sir, that this Parliament, not just this House of Assembly, but that this Parliament will speak as one this week. But I pray equally that the people of Barbados will appreciate that this battle requires each and every one of us who has the good interests of the country at heart. Not just to accept that there must be a deprivation of liberty for 24 months, or that there must be a gun amnesty for 1 week and that there will be zero tolerance to gun crime thereafter, or that the government is spending $41 million at the ports of entry in order to be able to have the scanners and the instruments of security that we should have had long time, or that we are spending $11 million in training for young people between the ages of 8 and 15, and then 15 and 25 in training and all types of activity. Not all those things alone, but that it is in the individual effort to give back that we will take back Barbados. And that one by one, as the old people would say, one blow is kill old cow. This is not an old cow to kill. This is a nation to build. And if we can ask each Barbadian who knows better and can do better to work with us in this effort, Mr. Speaker, sir, I hope and pray that in a few years' time we can look back at this time as one that tested our every sinew, but from which, sir, we emerged united and stronger because we were able to explain to those of our young people, the 50 or 60 of them, who are blemishing our state, that there is a better way, and that they too must take that better way, because what they are doing now undermines the integrity not just of the public space, but of the opportunities for they and their families to move to a better place and a better space. I pray, sir, for this, that this Parliament speaks with one voice and that this country acts with one accord. I'm obliged to you, sir.
Honourable Member for Christchurch East.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to lend my full support to this amendment. I will say, Mr. Speaker, that like yourself and the Honourable Prime Minister, I started my legal career in the magistrates' courts, practicing criminal law, and did so pretty much up to when I changed professions. I went from the hallowed halls of justice into the hallowed halls of Parliament. And like yourself, Mr. Speaker, we would have fought time and time again for bail for persons. We would have fought for bail for persons who were charged with some heinous crimes. We would be on the other side of the fence, where we forever touted the importance of liberty and the upholding of all the rights enshrined in the Constitution. So I will say, Mr. Speaker, that the casual derogation of the rights of the individual does not sit well with me, and it never has, and it probably never will. But equally, Mr. Speaker, I believe there comes a time when you have to prioritize what it is that you're doing. When you have to realize that country comes before the individual. And there are times when you look objectively at a situation and you realize that it is getting entirely out of hand and that something needs to be done. Let me start at the outset, Mr. Speaker, by commending the Honourable Attorney General. He has been stretched, sir, by all that has been happening and trying to respond and get ahead of things, Mr. Speaker, such that we preserve the integrity of our judicial system, we preserve the integrity of the police force, we preserve the integrity of Barbados and its reputation as a good place to be and a good place to bring up your children. I have, over the years, had my battles with the various commissioners of police and to be honest, never really saw eye to eye with most of them, such that I think some recent commissioners, anytime any correspondence or anything with my name came to them, they probably looked at it and started by stripping before reading. But having said that, that was because of my professional obligations. At no point in time have I ever not given the Royal Barbados Police Force the respect that it deserved as for the role it played in protecting society in Barbados, and also the various commissioners, the last commissioner, the current commissioner. They have my full respect, and the current commissioner has my full support. People have been slamming and lambasting the Royal Barbados Police Force, but I ask people to stop and think for a while. If somebody is intent on doing something bad, it is very seldom that you're able to stop them before they do it. What the police force has done, and has done well recently, is in getting to the bottom of their investigations quickly and arresting and charging people. So I wish, in light of all the flack that the police force is getting now, for people to be reasonable. Be reasonable. If you, in your mind, up and decide you are going to attack or kill a person, and you don't share that with anybody, all we can do is deal with the mess after it happens, and they have dealt with it quickly. So my confidence in the Royal Barbados Police Force and the hierarchy of the force and the AG's office is at perhaps the highest it has ever been. Now, Mr. Speaker, the Honourable Attorney General outlined to us all of the statistics and all of the facts that inform the decision of the AG and the Cabinet of Barbados to make this amendment. The other thing I would like to say is something happened last week, Thursday, Mr. Speaker. And Cabinet broke early because we were asked to attend a meeting at Parliament with the full Parliament of Barbados. All MPs, all senators. That is government, that is opposition, that is independent. Mr. Speaker, I sat for 5 years as a senator, before almost a year here now. In the 6 years I've been in and around these precincts involved in the business of government, I have never been invited to a meeting that entailed everybody involved in the governmental process for the purpose of explaining, putting the cards on the table, and taking the entire government of Barbados into the confidence of the Prime Minister and the AG. And I wish to commend the PM and the AG for that. I also, Mr. Speaker, wish to commend the opposition and the independent senators. I think we've turned a page with something. We learned something last week, that perhaps full information and full disclosure on matters of significance and substance to the country, especially where there are matters to deal with a crisis, allows everybody to be on the same page and allows people to make informed decisions that are to the best interests of Barbados. And that was done last Thursday. AG, I commend you, and I commend the Prime Minister for that. Mr. Speaker, it is of great concern to me that the majority of persons engaged in violent crime in Barbados are now late teens and early 20s. They're in a 5-year time span there, sir. Late teens and early 20s. People who properly should be furthering their education, learning a skill, being at university, BCC, polytechnics, something, trying to make themselves into productive members of society. It is this catchment, our youngest adults that are turning to crime and seem to have no respect for life. I don't know, sir, if people exercise their mind to think as far as to the finality of death. There is no coming back from death. One person did it. Well, two, Lazarus. But in the history of the world, two people did it. But, Mr. Speaker, we've made many advancements. Weapons have become more sophisticated to enable you to kill more efficiently. Or science had advanced to the point where we can actually perform operations through a hole, sir, as big as my fingernail and remove organs. But the one thing we have never been able to do in the history of mankind is to bring back somebody who is dead. And these young people need to understand that when you see on a movie men come in and start to shoot out, or a man walks up and shoots somebody assassination style, that is in the movie. Those are paid actors. When the scene cuts, that man gets up, wipes the fake blood off, and goes home to his family. It is not so when you put a gun to the head of somebody and pull the trigger in real life. That person will die and they're not coming back. This is as serious as it gets, Mr. Speaker. This is why the normal laws and the normal application of the laws are not going to work. Bail should only be denied. I believe that people have a right to bail. I do believe that. I preach that my whole life. I'd be a hypocrite to say otherwise now. Can I have some water, please? There's a right to bail. But the right to bail for the individual has to be balanced against what is good for society and the perception of the justice system. We're going into a new frontier now with the amendments that the Honorable Attorney General is making to the Bail Act. The Honorable AG referenced the case of R.V. Hall, a Canadian case, and he touched on some aspects of the judgment. I wish to actually read a couple aspects of the majority decision on the appeal that, if you listen to the words, you will understand why we're doing what we're doing. As per McLaughlin, CJ, and others, a provision that allowed bail to be denied on the basis that the accused man's detention was required, this is important, to maintain confidence in the administration of justice. It was neither superfluous nor unjustified. It served a very real need to permit a bail judge to detain an accused pending trial for the purpose of maintaining the public's confidence if the circumstance of the case so warranted. Without public confidence, the bail system and the justice system generally stood compromised. Whereas in the instant case, the crime was horrific, inexplicable, and strongly linked to the accused, a justice system that could not detain the accused man risked losing the public confidence upon which the bail system and the justice system, Whereas in the instant case, the crime was horrific, inexplicable, and strongly linked to the accused, a justice system that could not detain the accused risked losing the public's confidence upon which the bail system and the justice system as a whole reposed. The court held that a valid consideration in denying bail was not simply, will the man reoffend? It was not simply, could we guarantee he'll be there to attend his trial? It was not simply the seriousness of the crime, the usual ones that the prosecution call out. But there is now a new one that has to be considered and is valid. If it appears that the justice system is powerless to keep persons whose crimes are so horrific from being granted bail, then the perception of the justice system and the bail system itself would be compromised. And that is what we are doing here. Sir, the public is lambasting the justice system right now. They shifted off of the police. They're giving them a little break now, but they're lambasting the judges. It cannot be, sir, it cannot be that someone convicted of not one murder, or sorry, someone accused of not one murder but two, can be granted bail. If that person gets out, sir, what does the public then think of the judicial system? Especially when the person goes on to commit another offense. The judicial system appears a farce and a fraud and powerless. Our justice system must never be perceived as powerless. So what the Honorable AG has done, I said, look, we accept that right now the system is slow, and anybody can come and say because of the inherent slowness, pace of the system, that this person is unlikely to get a trial for 5 to 10 years. You cannot keep them. That has been the excuse. The bulk of the times when somebody is granted bail for murder is because of the length of time it takes to get the trial on. And the judges might find themselves or feel themselves fettered and having to protect the rights of the individual, where the Constitution guarantees the right to a trial, a fair trial in a reasonable time. So what the AG has done is looked at the Canadian case, looked at the justification, and legislated it now. So we're now removing it from the discretion of the judge. The judge does not have to feel himself constrained to defend constitutional rights. What the AG has said, to remove all doubt, to preserve the integrity of the justice system, and to protect Barbados and Barbadians, where your crime is so horrific, where you are charged with murder or firearm offense that is so serious that you would get 10 years in jail if found guilty. You are not eligible for bail within 24 months. AG, I applaud your bravery in doing that. But Mr. Speaker, we in law know nothing is absolute. So it contemplates, the amendments also contemplate the situation where circumstances are such that to do that would create the most horrible injustice. We know, sir, that the police in Barbados do not charge people with manslaughter. Anytime there's an unlawful death, the charge is murder. That leads to anomalies, sir. In situations where you know from the time the case starts, you know self-defense is a real defense and the person is likely to get off on self-defense. Even if the police feel themselves constrained to charge somebody with murder, there's a provision here that allows where it will cause so horrible an injustice, and it sets out what it is, that the court can still grant the bail. But there's a protection in there, sir. Right now, a judge can grant bail for murder without giving reasons, without writing his reasons. And I believe in an earlier draft, the intention was to force the judges in making a decision whether or not to grant bail to give their reasons within 72 hours of granting the bail. Now, sir, we all know that sometimes you act in haste and you repent at leisure. Sometimes you make a decision on the spot, and when you had the benefit of thinking about it, you wonder yourself, did I make the right decision? In the amendment providing for the fact that judges have to give their written decision contemporaneously at the same time as making the decision on bail, it forces that judge to think. So even when your 24 months has passed, or even if you apply under special circumstances, and the judge has heard both sides, and this provision as well that the prosecution can be surprised, they get 72 hours clear notice to allow them ample opportunity to digest the facts and represent their case properly in front of the judge. But when that is done, when the judge has heard from both sides, the judge has to step aside and start to pen his reasons. And sometimes, sir, when you look at what you are writing, you actually will end up coming to a different decision than had you not written. So this provision, I believe, is most important because it forces the judge to write the reasons down and look at them before making that decision. And I believe that is an exceedingly important part and provision that is going to guarantee that justice is served. Now, a very interesting thing happened on Saturday, Mr. Speaker. I was coming home and I reached the traffic lights closest to my house. There was a vehicle stopped in the road. You know, when you approach the traffic lights, there's a pad that you have to drive onto, and it triggers, it lets the lights know that somebody's waiting. So the vehicle had stopped just short of that pad. And the car pulled up behind the vehicle. And then I pulled up behind that car. So the three cars at the lights waiting for the light to change. I'm wondering what's going on. I'm looking up, thinking, why didn't this man drive onto the pad? And then all of a sudden, sir, you heard a loud bang, bang. And there was a lot of smoke. Well, sir, if you, like me, had ever had the benefit of suffering with an old vehicle, when you hear the loud bang and you see the smoke, you know that the car has backfired. But for people who's only ever driven new vehicles, I may not know that, like perhaps the person who was in front of me, they heard the loud bang. This is a true story, sir. I put my hand on my heart. I swear, this is a true story. They heard the loud bang, they saw the smoke. After a delay of 5 or 6 seconds, the two front doors opened. And a lady got out on the left-hand side, and a lady got out from the driver's seat. And they looked scared and panicked. The driver of the vehicle dashed to the back door, opened the back door, snatched out her handbag, grabbed a bag of groceries, and both of them started to run. This is a true story, sir. And the driver shouted out, "The car backfiring, the car backfiring." By this time, the lady was near my car door, and I said to her, "Sweetheart, the car is not a gunshot. The car is backfiring." She looked startled, and she said, "Look, I was so frightened, but I had to run." I said, "Well, you couldn't be that frightened if you actually went in the back seat and took out your handbag and your groceries and then went." Sir, as I'm telling you, sir, I'm telling you. So I got home, sir. As I walked in through the door, my wife said to me, "Did you hear that gunshot?" I said, "It was not a gunshot. It was a car backfiring." I got on the phone and I called the AG. And I said, because sir, to be honest, I was laughing. I was laughing real bad. I couldn't believe that the lady's first instinct was to grab the groceries and the handbag. Because if it was me, I thought it was a gunshot. Well, first of all, I would have driven off, being already in my car. If not, I would have dashed somewhere and left everything else. And I called the AG. And he said to me, "Wilfred, I want you to tell that story when you address the bail amendment. I want you to tell that story. Because it is funny initially, but it is not funny. We are now at the situation where the public of Barbados is so frightened. They are so frightened that they're paralyzed by fear. People are confused. They don't even know what to do when confronted with the situation. And that is as dangerous as it gets. The public of Barbados is so frightened and paralyzed that we think every loud noise now is something else. Once upon a time, sir, you heard a bang coming from the road. You felt it was a car backfiring or a motorcycle or something. Everybody felt it was a gunshot. That's where we are now. and that we have gotten here, it is well past time for us to do what needs to be done to take our country back. As I said, I have fought over and over for the rights of the individual. But sir, I believe God, and then family, and then country. And depending on which family member I'm talking to, so I might actually put country first. But it is up there, sir. The country is up there with my family. I love my country. I love Barbados. I do not love what is happening, and I do not love the people who are doing it to my country. We have made a departure from the regular in these bail amendments. Some may say they're draconian. I believe that based on what is happening now, they are indeed absolutely necessary. I believe we have gone about it in the right way. The police are doing what they can. It must be entirely demoralizing to the police force when they swiftly go to apprehend a suspect in a serious case, in a homicide, and the officers slave and do the investigation and put that case together. That because of problems with the judicial system over which they have no control, that people whose propensity is to violence are back out on the street, sir, with not a care in the world. We hear them, sir. When we go into our communities and campuses, we have to talk to everybody. The reality is, the youngsters, even the delinquent youngsters, vote. You have to talk to all of them. And there is no respect for the police, and there is no respect for the court system. The youngsters will tell you, well, if I do something, the case can come off. By the time the case come on, somebody may dead. They will tell you that. They will tell you they're going chill out or cool out for a little while, and then they will get bail and come back out. That's what they're telling you. You cannot respect a system that allows them to perpetuate this misguided belief that the judicial system and the police force is a mere inconvenience, a blip, after which they will regain their freedom. What this says, sir, is think clearly. Think long and hard, because the people of Barbados are fed up. The police are fed up, the government is fed up, and we are prepared to do what it takes to get this situation under control. Challenge it if you want. We will deal with that then. But we as a government, and when I say we as a government, sir, I'm including every single person in here, and I'm also including those who form part of the governmental process in the Senate. All of us to a man are now completely fed up and prepared, sir, to put aside partisan alliances, to put aside political convictions or political, let me try it carefully, allegiances, that's the word I want, that's a neutral word, to put aside political allegiances, sir, and to honestly look within ourselves and do what now is required by Barbados and for the benefit of Barbadians, to take our streets back, to take our judicial system back, and to restore some level of respect for life, if not the preservation of life as a whole. Mr. Speaker, I am very comfortable in a way that I never thought that I'd be comfortable before in abrogating certain rights. I am comfortable and my conscience is clear that what we're doing now is what is necessary and in the best interests of Barbados. Courts have a duty. And their duty is to dispense justice, uphold the law, and to protect society. They might have found themselves or felt themselves constrained before, but this amendment removes some of that discretion from them, allows them to have their conscience clear, to especially now operate on the third limb of that in the protection of the society. Mr. Speaker, I wholeheartedly support this amendment to the Bail Act. I thank you.
Honourable Member for St. Thomas.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I want, sir, to highly commend the Honourable Member for St. Joseph and the Attorney General for having brought this Bail Act and the amendments today. I'm really very proud to be a part of this dispensation because matters of this nature call for brave individuals and brilliant ones too in order to be able to bring about such change. The entire Barbados, sir, including some of our visitors, we are all afraid of the madness that has taken over this country over the last few years. And therefore, I want to add my support to what has transpired here today and what I know the people of Barbados will be proud to know. It will bring back a measure of confidence. It will bring back a measure of feeling safe and having tranquility permeating our various institutions and neighborhood. The actions, sir, of this government, particularly through the Honourable Attorney General today, speak of a government that has vision, strength, compassion, care and concern, not only for our own advancement, but that of the people of Barbados and those visiting among us. And I think that is very critical. Having had, sir, more than 50 years almost experience in education, it has me as a very older woman extremely astounded to see what has happened in my society that creates an element of fear and concern. And I believe that even those in the judiciary are afraid themselves because the foolish movies that our children are exposed to on the video and so, and they're not even understanding this is not real life, because you see the actor in another movie again, if he had been shot or whatever form of destruction happened to him to cause him to lose his life. And as children, we had comics, we had spare comics, we had Goofy and all those, but we also were taught how to fantasize. And that is what the Honourable Prime Minister was speaking about when she talked about social and emotional learning. We would play dress up at home and we were the cowboys and the crooks. And we knew as children that in the cowboy and the crook movie, somebody used to die, but they had standards in that if you shot a man in the back as a part of it, there was a penalty. And somehow, our children are watching these movies, they're getting engaged in all these violent activities in their homes and their communities, and the home will not be overlooked at all today, Mr. Speaker, sir. And therefore, I am proud to see, people used to call it gumption, but to see the capacity of the Attorney General and this government in reaching out to make a difference when that was ignored, when calls were made. I am a proud member of this society, sir. Having joined in the administration, when we were the administration between 1994 and 2008, to have joined the then leader of the opposition, the late former Prime Minister of Barbados, the Honourable Member then for St. John, when as leader of the opposition for the Democratic Labour Party, as part of the government, but the leader of the Democratic Labour Party, he called for a crime and violence march in Bridgetown. And two people that I knew who were present and were at the forefront because he encouraged us to join him at the forefront, having been in Queen's Park, the Honourable Member for St. Michael Northeast, and your humble servant here, sir. And I felt proud. I know one young lady cursed me very badly that evening and said he put in a B, come in here with we, and all kind of nonsense. I do not see crime as any political thing. Crime is something that permeates and destroys the heart of everybody, Don't care wherever in the world it is. And therefore, we were proud to be a part of it. There might have been more Labour Party supporters and members of Parliament in the audience, but clearly the honourable member and myself, we were pulled to the front, and we marched every step of the way so that the public can see this is not a political thing. Crime is everybody's business. And so, Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to refer to Education and Youth Affairs that was under us at that time, when we inherited a government in 1994, when a then minister says there are no gangs in Barbados, only a few giddy-headed boys doing foolishness. And we came in and determined the Youth Affairs Department attached to education and culture. And that would have been coordinated by the Right Honourable Member of St. Peter, who is no longer in this honourable chamber. But it goes to show the vision that the Labour Party had at that time. And the point is, youth affairs, culture and education working hand in hand together, looking at those who are the teachers and the other administrators, those who are the children, those who are parents and guardians, pulling all the threads together to create a safety route for our Barbados and advancement for the black and white people of this country. And I heard today, I'm looking at an honourable member here, sir, who served as a youth commissioner for more than 20 years, who was out there in the trenches as the eyes and ears for the youth, coordinating and pulling projects together to make a difference. And we saw a slackening of any crime and violence in this country. For more than 14 years we worked on it. And we saw the tremendous difference. And there were programs that would bring us back to what the honourable member for St. Michael East and our Prime Minister said earlier about working together, the social and emotional learning, letting our children fantasize, hearing the stories of the Aesop fables, the tortoise and the hare, the crow and in the picture, don't remember the full name now. All those sayings from the Bible that told us thou shalt not kill from the commandments, to love one another for love is of God, to be able to share and to care for one another. Who had you by the big belly cow, don't help you feed them. Any coward who runs away lives to see another day. The golden rule. And I don't care who gets stirred up, hear me say, a lot of our adults and honourable members here perhaps don't know it so well. Do unto others as you will have them do unto you. How can somebody kill somebody, beat somebody, steal somebody's thing, and then go into hiding? Would you like somebody to do it to you? But are we doing enough of that in our homes? Are we doing enough of that in our schools? Are we doing enough in our churches? And I'm not blaming anybody, I'm just making the point, things can change in this country, and this government is ready, willing and able, and has put the resources in that we can turn this country around, Mr. Speaker, sir. Our vision in Youth Affairs, sir, at that time, having learned, yes, you do have some young people who have gone astray. Yes, we have parents who don't have the know-how or who don't seem to care that children should be nurtured. And so we came up with the Parent Volunteer Program, engaging parents. We came up with sports, where the Youth Development Department, or the Youth Development Program, I should say, under the Youth Affairs Department, engaged thousands of youth in the zone every day across this island. Because when you give them that opportunity to exercise, they become tired, they use up the energies, and they are directing the energies into other directions, ensuring that their health, because once you exercise, your health will improve, but then you don't have any time to go and sit down and plan any heinous crime or anything that you could do that was stupid. And then we had the youth achieving results, because everybody in Barbados now seems to think that everyone should be an academic up front. Any society has to have all kinds of people. My pipe needs a plumber now. I don't even know how to turn on anything in it really. But that plumber may not have had a secondary education or might not have been given qualifications in the way we look at it, but that plumber is dynamic and does the work that I cannot do because I'm not an academic either. But the point is, the youth achieving results made sure that our young people got a chance to display the skills and to develop them through the program under Youth Affairs and in association with other agencies in the government and so on. A checks program that we know what our culture is, where we have come from, where we want to go. So the children were doing activities with Ifi Mokajumbis and the tumblers and so on that we saw, and its upsurgence of young people getting involved in cultural activity. They did stilt walking. They did so many other activities to engage them, and it was a part of the school's curriculum that it was done. We had the Peace Program, where children were able to get the opportunity to upgrade their skills and talents in music, because a lot of our children are musically inclined, but they did not have the wherewithal because of poverty to be able to play a violin or a piano or keyboard or whatever instrument the ministry invested in that. Our young people were given amplifiers and so on to help them to develop their talents in music, and we have had a lot of bands that have sprung up as a result. The youth service, where our young people were drafted into businesses and they got opportunities to be able to become apprenticeships and so as a part of it. We also had the Alma Parish School, sir, that ensured that those late developers got an opportunity one day a week from third form to be able to do a school to work program. They learned the skill in boat building, in baking, hospitality, in barbering, a lot of other areas. That school closer has been closed by the last administration. And we have a lot of young children out there, 13, 14, 15 years, not going to school because they've not been performing well. And school, for them, is to go to Skylar, to walk the corridors, to curse the teachers, to fight with others. A lot of problems, Mr. Speaker, sir. And therefore, we need to find ways of harnessing the capacities of those children. Because a child who may not be able to read and write and speak well might be the best artist in Barbados. Why must our children wait until they go to prison to be able to find out that they have that innate ability to be able to paint, to draw, to become a baker, to become whatever kind of performing artist, when it can be done out here in our institutions? And then you hear, oh, he's one of the best artists. I have beautiful paintings that I bought, sir, from prisoners over the last 20 years. Whenever we had an annual conference, the honourable member for St. Michael West could speak about it, sir. The honourable members on this side and on that side, sir, where the prisoners' work was brought down and displayed, and members came up from the conference and purchased because they need that money when they leave prison to help them to be back on their feet. And we are not doing enough, Mr. Speaker, in the school system in some instances, and in other aspects of our development to be able to carry our young people forward. I want, sir, for us to continue to engage our young people in activities similar to what even Richard Carter, if you will call me his name, sir, the director of youth affairs at that time, who set up a program with the encouragement and the approval by the ministry then to say to the young people and to those women and men out there, bring the toys you have bought for your children once you've bought them a toy gun. A toy gun may be carrying water in it, but the children learning well and early enough, you wouldn't play with me and I shoot you with water. Or with whatever little things they used to have in them with balls and so. And Mr. Carter and his program with the Youth Affairs had a program every year. Parents brought into the Ministry of Education the toy guns, and in exchange for the toy guns were educational toys and books. And that stopped as soon as the government changed in 2008. Because earlier the children are learning to shoot. They don't care what kind of gun it is, a toy gun, but they're learning to shoot. I also want, Mr. Speaker, to say the reason why a Barbados Labour Party government between 1994 and 2008 caused that government to have that vision of ensuring that every parish and sometimes most of the communities got the opportunity for the establishment of pavilions, playing fields, and we made sure that the majority of them, according to what resources, monetary resources were available, to have them lit at night. Nowadays, at our schools, were to be open from 3 o'clock on evenings in our time to make sure that young people get the opportunity to access the school's facilities for meetings and drama, dancing and performing arts, whatever you want to call it. That no longer happens. You've got to pay a high amount of money in insurance in order to use the school's compound. If you want to use it for half of a year, a quarter of a year, $700 and some. So where are poor people going to get the money from? They're the ones who will populate our pavilions and our playing fields and our schools. That has stopped, Mr. Speaker. And it is heart-wrenching to see where our youth are going, and not all of our youth who get involved in crime are youth who are criminal-minded. But you know what? A man is known by the company he keeps. We're not reminding them of that. And however it is, there's no way that 5 young men or 3 young women and 2 young men or whatever can come together to say, let us rob that blind man. Somebody has to be strong enough to say, no, that is all he has. He can't see you, but he will know his voice. But it is wrong to rob him of whatever resources he has. Where is the training coming from? And again, our parenting skills are horrible. Nobody can tell me, a country girl, that mothers working are the causes for children not being attended to. We had that whole village, that whole community across the length and breadth of Barbados. It is still very active and strong in most rural parishes and I believe, sir, in urban communities as well, where people share, they look out for the children, they supervise them after school, and the before and after school programs will help. The breakfast clubs are helping, but enough is not being done by those who can do better. And my biggest problem with most Barbadians, we have climbed that social ladder, you call it upward social mobility, and have forgotten from whence we have come. That too is adding, because when you bring up all of the brains and they move away, having known the culture, what their upbringing was, we need them to come back to the community. It's not necessary to live, because something that's impossible, but come back and walk to the young people and let them know the situation you are in today. I was too, with poverty. But if I have climbed the social ladder, it is because I capitalized on it. You need to go to school and learn. You need to go to school and pay the respect. You need to go to school and make sure that you don't walk the corridors every day, but that you conform with the rules, because when we were growing up, we never went with shoes to school. I went to primary school with no shoes on my feet. No school meals, except the cold beds from the night before. And I'm saying this because young people feel that we are all honorable members in here, and that we've been born with gold spoons in our mouths. We need to go into the village and tell them from whence we have come, but because of good parents, wonderful neighbors, and excellent teachers and others in the community as role models, we have come thus far without any police record. And we will build this Barbados together, because that is what we must be doing now, not only here but in our churches, in very other institutions across Barbados. The other thing I want to say, Mr. Speaker, sir, that the cultural penetration is what's taking a toll of our country too. And the drug culture is even worse. The only time I knew people had tattoos and gold teeth were men who were seamen, because women could be seamen. The women stayed home and looked after the children, and they did it well, raising 10 and 15 children. But the tattoo culture now is a big thing. The brand name shoes, the bling bling, gold around their neck. A man in Orange Hill got killed about 3 years ago at a karaoke session, sitting. Big gold chain gone, and a life gone too, over what? Jewelry that can be stolen, that if you have an earthquake you can't find half or anything. If you have a tsunami you can't find people finding more jewelry. What is it worth? A life does not worth any jewelry, anything material. God has given us this life that we should live, and live righteously. We have got all those tenets and those moral values and so that help to tie us in as a set of human beings, to know that we must love one another, for love is of God. The Bible expresses that in so many different ways. The Honorable Member for Christ, Michael West, can tell us of and teach us lessons about it, because that is his role as a bishop. And I'm saying, why are we not instituting it in our homes? There's little or no parental control with this social mobility again. Every child has a room. Every child has a cell phone and a laptop or tablet or whatever. And in that room doing what he or she feels like doing. And then when we find out they have boyfriends in the bedroom and the parents don't even know the house is so big. Because the mentality is the biggest house, having the nicest of furniture and so on. But then the important things for social living are lacking because we have dropped the guard that we should have in raising our children and directing them. And I am sorry, Mr. Speaker. It is destroying us and we're seeing it every day. But I want young people to know that money and riches are not all. Fancy clothes are not all. Fussy cars, because I see some fellas and some girls driving some fussy cars, Mr. Speaker. I'm still at Suzuki level and I'm proud because every time I turn the key, the engine starts up. But you see the Lexus, that's what it's called, because I'm not even familiar. The BMW, what's the other one? The Mercedes. And some fellas or girls and fellas, they got all the same. Never drove a stroke against the wind yet to earn a wage or a salary. But the biggest life you could ever want. And what hurts me more, the values are not trickling down to the children that they have. Because most of these men, Mr. Speaker, sir, that are in for these heinous crimes, a child or two, and then they tell the magistrate, but sir, my girlfriend pregnant, and I would like to go home with her, I want bail. Mr. Speaker, you would know better than I. They only knew that they had a girlfriend and young children when they committed a heinous crime and injured somebody, killed them, whatever. Then to know they got children. But their children have to live and they must not become the scourges of society with people pointing the finger. He father is who they killed the man. And they see father as the ignorant boy that blew up this body. All kinds of madness. Parents have an integral role to play, Mr. Speaker, in turning this madness around. The money and the riches cannot work. Too many spoiled children are out there. Even in the supermarket, you see them facing or back in the trolley, going up the aisle. Any slip at all, child neck break, you can't even say anything to the child. The child's neck is broken. The child's neck is broken. I know that the recording has to happen. We need stronger parental controls in order to take these people forward, these young people forward. We need family structures that are properly coordinated to help the parents. Paradox is not enough. It is too much of a Herculean task. But I believe that those three pillars in our society that work well for my generation, and that of the honourable member for St. Christchurch, St. Michaelis, and that for the honourable member for St. George, and the honourable member for St. George North, I would consider ourselves the oldest persons in here. I believe that the structures that we can put in place can help us to turn what appears to be a Herculean task around. But the schools, the churches, and the rest of our communities are to come together again and coordinate and plan and deliver and offer the resources, because the government has spent billions of dollars over the past many years to ensure that we get free education, including school meals, including textbooks and revolving fund and so. And I am afraid but too many of our billions have gone out to sea because it has not been properly capitalized on by our people. I have a big beef with schools too, but I'm not going to stick to this now because the school business now would call for tremendous reform. Except for me to say, Mr. Speaker, sir, the curriculum reform project of 1996 is one of the best things that happened to Barbados, despite the high costs, because we were the ones that were setting the example and sharing our best practices with other of our brothers and sisters in the Caribbean. And today there is still about 90% of rote learning in our classrooms. Not all children will catch up on tables in mathematics. Not all of them will reason, because the kind of tuition I got, may the Lord continue to bless Lester Vaughan in his grave and his team at Holy Innocent School. We learned how to do mental arithmetic, so we had to be alert. We had to know the tables. Our parents taught us, but teachers took time out to teach us. Teaching happened in the school. A change now for textbooks, workbooks in particular, and each school has different workbooks. So if two children are in a household and one goes to one school, one goes to the other, the workbooks are different. So it is difficult for parents who have not been so well educated to be able to cope. And sometimes the textbooks and the exercise, the workbooks are never touched, Mr. Speaker. Can you imagine? Parents having to go to buy $300 in books every year for one school child. So if they have 4 children there, Mr. Speaker, you know. And therefore, the workbook scheme needs to be examined. If you're given one examination, the workbook should be across the board, so that everybody develops the skills and that teachers will teach, because I understand now that lessons is $25 sometimes and $75 per hour, $20 and $75 per hour, to let children get extra assistance. They want the teaching in the classroom for all of us who have agreed. And we still have excellent teachers and principals most of the time, Mr. Speaker, sir. But there are too many deficiencies that are showing up their ugly heads. There are young men and women who have excellent skills. But you know what? Everybody wants to get an older grammar school. I wouldn't even call a name because I'm tired of hearing it now. We have taken education and bastardized it. Unless you go to X school and you're in a fraternity, I know the arm member for St. Andrew, where he here. Yeah, up and on. I don't know the arm for the city too. But up and on, and children go to school there and come out in second form and don't do anything either, like in the others. Something is wrong with the system. And for most of the schools at secondary level, we still have children who are big-time failures and become criminals too, as we are there bastardizing our newer secondary schools. That most of the teachers in our newer secondary schools went to newer secondary schools or private secondary schools in their time. We can make a difference, and the curriculum reform with the social and emotional learning, let children talk about how they feel, how they're hurt if there's an accident, what happened, and the emotions coming through. That is what is necessary, so that these young men and women can understand it is a hurtful thing for somebody to be injured, for somebody to be insulted, for somebody to curse. It is disrespectful to curse the police. It is the worst thing in the world to shoot somebody in an ambulance somewhere down in Deacons a few years back. A man got shot, the ambulance came, they sought to give him whatever necessary medical assistance until he could get to the hospital, and the fellow told the ambulance man, "Shift wrong, boss." Bang, bang. They go to the Queen Elizabeth Hospital and now have all of us, the poor people in Barbados, disenfranchised to walk around to the front of Martindale's Road instead of going through the north, because one idiot chose to go to the hospital to shoot a man that was in the bed. And now a prison officer has to go to stand next to that person, or police officer, as a guard to make sure that nothing happens, especially if that person who has been shot is somebody known to the police. I'm going to wrap up, Mr. Speaker, by saying we need more special needs programs for our children. We need more training resources for our parents and guardians. The developers and the slow learners are suffering more than anybody else, and that is where we are seeing, if you do any analyses of those individuals who are now the major perpetrators according to what is happening, you can tell that they have a lot of deficiencies, especially when it comes to their speech and their understanding. I want, Mr. Speaker, as I come near to the close, to have some newer, some more teaching methodologies administered. And I want to just advise the young people out there, we love you dearly. And any mother, and I am a mother one time and then 4 more, and then all the rest of Barbados are my children. Any mother would tell them, any father of his worth will tell them, please stay on the straight and narrow. The Bible says, a good name is rather to be chosen than which is our goal. Nowadays, it seems as though the rude boys are the ones admired. A fellow will tell you, get rich or die trying, and put on a tattoo too. I want the young people to know, we too have come through poverty, worse poverty than any of them has. But we were able to work together as families, as communities, teachers working with us, church leaders, the best people working with us, to help us to reach the level we are at, to build our character. For me, character is all. So I plead to the youth today, sir, put down the guns and pick up a trade. Pursue some studies, tithe your time, work with families, Be an example for the rest of your community and your society. Work honestly for what you gain. Respect law and order. Be the change agents on the blocks. All the blocks and all persons on the blocks are not negative, sir. Some of them do help to guide the young people. And so I close by saying, Mr. Speaker, sir, it is not a badge of honor to go to prison. Fellows seem to think so until they get there. But Mr. Speaker, sir, you know how they cry and they moan. I want my daddy. I want to go get a drink. I got to wait till lunch. And they do it because they did not know what happens behind those walls. And the ones who know it and come back out and do silly things, they are the ones who are enticing our young people to go in and do nonsense. Life is precious, Mr. Speaker, sir. And therefore, I want them to respect life. We are going to support them when they try to do things with the Ministry of Youth Affairs, the Ministry of Culture. All the other ministries are working and have planned to pull things together that each of us can have a safe and prosperous life, but the negativity will take that. So I want to highly commend the persons in the constabulary, in the judiciary, those in the schools and the churches and faith-based institutions, those role models and others in our various communities across Barbados to continue to service this country well. We have made retrograde steps. When we hear about the killings, it drives the fear of the devil in everybody. Families on both sides, the perpetrators as well as those who are the victims, suffer as a result. Our going forward today, sir, is our people coming together and everybody's responsibility. Again, I am a strong supporter of the Bail Act and the measures through amnesty for us to be able to get those persons who have the guns and the ammunition and so to bring it in so that we can get on with the business. And I am extremely grateful to the Honorable Attorney General as well for strengthening the hands of the judiciary by providing more persons working at that level and giving the necessary resources to make a change. And I want to say, Mr. Speaker, sir, how proud I am today to be a part of this change that will help to ease the minds of Barbadians, and pray that when the ammunition comes in, that the police will hold it and that they will treat to it in a special way that I know they have over the years, and that whatever happens thereafter, Barbadians leave understanding and being reassured you can feel free to go to church and not have that kind of travesty that we saw a few weeks ago with a man killing 50 and 50 in hospital. That we can know we can go to town and shop, not like outside by Nara the other evening just before Christmas. We want to be safe in our spaces, and we are willing to work with the youth. Indeed I am. The Honourable Minister for Youth Affairs is, the Minister of Culture. We are all grassroots people who have achieved, and I want to thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the time, but I will get my soapbox in St. Thomas, sir, where we'll go on the blocks and I work with my young people, because every life saved is a special life, and every individual in this country should be able to live at peace and in safety, as should our visitors. I wish to thank you sincerely, sir.
Honourable Member of the City of Bridgetown.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the sitting be suspended for lunch until 2:30 p.m.
Take the second.
Question is that this honourable chairman be suspended until 2:30 p.m. All those honourable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it. This honourable chairman stands suspended until 2:30 p.m.